On the morning of January 3rd, 2026, the world woke up to a new reality in South America. In an overnight operation that few saw coming, the United States military launched massive airstrikes on Caracas, the capital of Venezuela. Explosions rocked the city as low-flying helicopters swarmed the skies, targeting key government buildings and military bases. But the bombs were just the cover for the real mission. For the first time in modern history, U.S. forces entered the city and arrested the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, along with his wife, Celia Flores. Hours later, President Donald Trump announced to the world that the United States would now run Venezuela until a new government could be formed. This operation, named Absolute Resolve, marked the explosive end to a conflict that had been simmering for more than 25 years. To understand how we got to the point of a U.S. president seizing a foreign leader from his own palace, we have to look back at the months leading up to this invasion. The drumbeat for war didn't start with a sudden declaration, but with a slow and steady escalation that began shortly after Donald Trump returned to the White House in January 2025. Soon after taking power, the new government took away legal protection from 600,000 Venezuelans living in the U.S., making its position clear. But the real turning point came when the U.S. government officially designated the Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua, as a foreign terrorist organization. This gave the U.S. legal cover to treat the gang not just as criminals, but as enemy combatants. By September 2025, the Caribbean Sea had become a war zone. The U.S. Navy deployed destroyers and amphibious assault ships to the waters off Venezuela's coast. On September 2nd, the first strike hit a vessel that the U.S. claimed was carrying drugs run by the gang. President Trump even shared a video of the boat exploding in flames, stating that everyone on board had been killed. Over the next few weeks, more strikes followed. The U.S. claimed these boats were smuggling cocaine and fentanyl, though human rights groups and some U.S. senators questioned the legality of hunting down suspected criminals with missiles. But the administration didn't stop there. In October, a memo revealed that the U.S. now considered itself to be in an armed conflict with these drug cartels. The tension reached a breaking point in December 2025. The U.S. began a naval blockade, stopping oil tankers from entering or leaving Venezuela. 2 ships carrying Venezuelan oil were seized, and the U.S. warned that any vessel trading with Maduro would be targeted. This effectively choked off the last bit of money the Venezuelan government had left. The CIA also began covert operations inside the country, conducting drone strikes on port facilities that they claimed were being used by gangs. By the time the new year arrived, President Trump stated clearly that war was on the table. Maduro tried to offer talks, saying he was willing to accept U.S. investment, but it was too late. On January 3rd, the hammer fell. However, this war is not just about drug gangs or a single year of tension. The hatred between Washington and Caracas goes back decades, to the rise of Hugo Chávez in 1999. Chávez, a charismatic former soldier, won the presidency by promising to utilize the country's massive oil wealth, aka the largest proven reserves in the world, to benefit the poor. He launched what he called the Bolivarian Revolution, rewriting the Constitution and nationalizing the oil industry. This put him on a direct collision course with the United States. Things went badly in 2002. Chávez was removed from power for 2 days in a coup. While he was locked up, the U.S. supported a new leader who was not elected. This made Chávez believe the CIA had planned it. Years later, papers showed the CIA knew about the coup but stayed silent. After this, the trust was broken forever. Chávez saw the U.S. as a threat to Venezuela's oil, and the U.S. saw Venezuela as a dangerous dictatorship close to home. When Chávez died in 2013, his hand-picked successor, Nicolás Maduro, took over. But Maduro did not have Chávez's luck or his oil money. Global oil prices crashed, and the Venezuelan economy began to fall apart. Corruption and mismanagement made things worse, and soon the people were starving. Inflation became almost impossible to imagine, once going above 300,000%. Bread cost so much that people used a wheelbarrow to carry the money. The U.S. saw this weakness and began to apply pressure. In 2014 and 2015, the first major sanctions hit Venezuelan officials. But the real economic war began in 2017. The U.S. government, under the first Trump administration, imposed harsh sanctions that blocked Venezuela from accessing financial markets. This was designed to make the economy scream. The U.S. prevented the Venezuelan government from selling its debt or moving its money, which made it impossible to import enough food or medicine. Then, in 2019, the U.S. took a drastic step. They stopped recognizing Maduro as the president entirely. Instead, they recognized Juan Guaido, an opposition leader, as the rightful leader of the country. This led to a bizarre situation where the U.S. seized Venezuela's most valuable foreign asset, the oil company Citgo, and handed control of it to Guaido. Suddenly, the Venezuelan government lost its biggest source of cash. The sanctions tightened further, targeting the oil sector directly. Venezuela, a country that sits on an ocean of oil, could no longer sell it legally to its biggest customer, the United States. The result was a catastrophe. The country lost billions of dollars, and millions of Venezuelans fled their homes, creating one of the largest migration crises in the world. It was during this chaos in 2020 that we saw a strange preview of the 2026 invasion. A former U.S. Green Beret named Jordan Goudreau launched a private invasion called Operation Gideon. It was a disaster. Goudreau had signed a contract with members of the Venezuelan opposition to capture Maduro, but the plan was poorly funded and infiltrated by Venezuelan spies. A small group of men tried to land on the coast in fishing boats but were immediately caught or killed. The media called it the Bay of Piglets, mocking it as a stupid failure. But for Maduro, it was proof that the Americans were coming for him. He wasn't wrong. He just had the timing off by 6 years. Fast forward to January 2026. The capture of Maduro has plunged the region into uncertainty. The U.S. airstrikes didn't just hit military targets. They destroyed airports, power grids, and government palaces. Caracas was left in the dark, with electricity cut off in large parts of the city. While some Venezuelans celebrated the removal of a leader they saw as a dictator, others reacted with terror, fearing a long and bloody occupation. Neighboring Colombia immediately closed its borders and braced for a new wave of refugees fleeing the violence. The biggest question now is, what happens to the oil? President Trump has been very clear about his intentions. In his announcement after the raid, he stated that the U.S. would tap into Venezuela's vast oil reserves and sell them to other nations. He said American oil companies would play a major role in the country's future, calling them the greatest in the world. This confirms the long-held suspicion of many critics that the conflict was always, at its heart, about oil. The U.S. has effectively taken control of the world's largest gas tank. The international reaction has been fierce. Russia and Cuba, longtime allies of Maduro, condemned the attack. The United Nations expressed deep alarm, warning that this sets a dangerous precedent where a powerful country can simply bomb a neighbor and kidnap its leader whenever it wants. As the dust settles on the ruins of Caracas, the U.S. military is digging in. They have promised to run the country until a proper transition can happen, but history shows that these transitions are rarely smooth. The gang Tren de Aragua, the original target of the operation, is still active, and loyalists to Maduro may turn to guerrilla warfare in the jungles. The USA-Venezuela War might have started with a lightning-fast raid, but the battle for control of the country and its oil is likely just beginning. What started as a diplomatic dispute in 1999 has ended with American boots on the ground in 2026, changing the map of South America forever. Hope I made the whole situation understandable. I won't force you to subscribe, but just a gentle reminder that we'll be posting this type of war, conflict, and politics-related content on this channel. Bye for now. Take care.